On behalf of Math Institute of Design and Architecture Swarnabhumi, we welcome you all for the MIDAS virtual 21st session for the Architectural Fraternity on Anthropology and Architecture by Professor A. Chellaperumal, Department of Anthropology, Pondicherry University. We welcome you, sir. Now, I request our beloved Principal, MIDAS, Professor Parisudarajan, sir, to deliver the welcome address.
Thank you. A very good afternoon to one and all. I welcome you all to this webinar titled Anthropology and Architecture. A special welcome to our expert speaker, Professor Chellaperumal, Department of Anthropology, Pondicherry University. Welcome you, sir. Anthropology is a very important study in architecture. As we all know, understanding anthropology is understanding human, and also anthropology has its various components, rather we can say verticals, which are studied in detail. To name them, they are social, physical, linguistics, and followed by archaeology. Today, our expert speaker will deliver us an in-depth understanding of how social anthropology is a vital component to architecture and for architectural studies. With this, once again, I welcome you all and I welcome our guest speaker to deliver his address. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Now I request our Professor Meenakshi ma'am to introduce today's speaker.
Thank you, Divya. Good afternoon, one and all present here. So I am very much privileged in introducing the speaker, Dr. A. Chellaperumal. He is a professor in Pondicherry University. For 33 years, he has been teaching PG and has published more than 50 articles and authored 4 books. He has given presentations in more than 69 conferences and 80 seminars. He has administered as Dean of Arts in St. Xavier's College for 2 years in 2002 to 2004 and has been an HOD of Anthropology in Pondicherry University since January 2007. He has also held the position of Director and Head in Charge in the Center for South Asian Studies, UNESCO Madanji Singh Institute for South Asia Regional Cooperation, Pondicherry University, and Principal of Community College, Pondicherry University. He has visited many foreign countries including Finland, Kuwait, USA, and China. He has bagged innumerable awards including Fulbright Visiting Scholar Award, UGC Research Award, Best Book Award by NCBH Chennai, etc. He is also a member of Editorial Board, Internal Research Journal of Social Sciences. His areas of specialization includes village studies, caste and social stratification, tribal studies, customary laws, ethnopoetics, anthropology of religion, and cognitive anthropology. We welcome you, sir. Over to you, sir. Thank you.
Good afternoon to you all. My dear Principal of MIDAS and dear Dr. Meenakshi and other faculty of MIDAS and many scholars who have gathered here, students of MIDAS, and also some of my colleagues from Pondicherry University also has joined here for this webinar. So it's really a privilege for me to speak with you this afternoon on an important topic that is architecture and anthropology, or anthropology and architecture. As all of you know, your college, MIDAS, is a very reputed college in the field of architecture, I know. And architecture as a profession, architecture as a discipline is well known everywhere, and it has highly reputable recognition. And throughout the world, the architecture specialists or architects are in well demand, and they are it is a professional discipline. And for that professional discipline to excel in the professional discipline, the architects are also should have the wider knowledge or wider spectrum or other interdisciplinary inputs, so that they would excel the profession of architecture in highly established manner. And I am today going to share some of my views on anthropology. As I told you, as architecture is also a vast field, anthropology is also a very vast field. It is one of the highly developed fields in the social sciences, and a lot of theoretical developments, all these things are there. And I do not want to tell you all descriptions of anthropology. You will come to know in my deliberations what do you mean by anthropology. But very to say briefly, anthropology is the study of man. Study of man means man and his works. What are all his works? Knowing mostly it is nothing but culture. The subject matter of anthropology is culture. Whereas, architecture, I need not have to define, what you mean by architecture. It is nothing but what you do in the space, or to put it very briefly, uh, very simply, what you do or the built space, or the space, how do you utilize, or how do you construct the space, that becomes the field or subject matter of architecture. So how the space is utilized, or how the space is constructed, or how the space is modified or utilized in so many ways, is the domain of architecture. Whereas for anthropology, all that are involved by the man are considered to be the subject matter of anthropology. In such a situation, the architecture won't go away from the purview of anthropology. That is the reason why, ever since anthropology has existed as a discipline, anthropologists have thought about the architectural forms. What are those architectural forms? Why I mean to say, this space, domestic space, or boundaries, or materiality of architectural forms, or building technologies. All these things form part of anthropology. Again, I am going to tell you, just now I told you the subject matter of anthropology is nothing but culture. Culture can be defined in so many ways. Culture can be in so many ways. It is culture is nothing but a way of life. There is also a distinction of culture. Culture can be broadly divided into two fields. One is material culture, and the other is non-material culture. What you see, or what you touch, or what you use visibly, empirically, or the physical space or materials, all forms material culture. But there are so many things which are also important part of culture, that is non-material. What do they what do you mean by non-materials? For example, values, beliefs, superstitions, and so many other things which are not to be seen, but they are only regulating the human behavior. So in such a way, the culture broadly can be divided into material and non-material. The what are all you bring under the rubric of material culture, or definitely are the all the fields of what architects would be showing interest. But how anthropologists view the architecture, how the architecture per se, or architects per se view the architecture, only the difference. I tell you, for human beings live in the world, or we all live in the space, the world space, physical space. But the physical space is used effectively by human knowledge, human skill, or here some of the techniques are used. So the space is utilized. So space is utilized means the space is built for the convenience, built for their need, built for their some creative purpose, whatever might be. So in such a situation, what are all that are built space forms very important area of research for both for the architecture specialist and also for the anthropologist. But at the same time here, one step ahead, anthropologists are also interested in the non-built space also, which means the natural space. Because the people, whether they are living in the mountains or wherever people live, they relate with their surroundings. They relate with their natural surroundings, whether they live within the forest or within the on the mountains or on the banks of the river, whatever it is. People, they live in communities and they relate with their environment, surroundings. Okay, and they not only relate with the surroundings, they also use the surroundings, they use the space around them. So using the space may become the part of the architecture. But certain things, not all the spaces will be utilized because space is vast. But at the same time, people will have so many meanings associated with the non-built space. So what I want to say here, anthropologists are not only interested in the built space of the people, even the so-called non-built space also are the purview of the anthropologists. But what anthropologists and archaeologists share, the common interest is on the built space. See, for example, houses or the buildings or any other structures. That is the way. In fact, people build the houses. Buildings are built by the buildings. People would say people shape buildings, but in fact, really, buildings also shape. And anthropologists are interesting, have made a lot of contributions for on the spatial usage. Because so spatial usage, if you deal with if you understand the spatial usage, you really understand the social relationship. I tell you very small ordinary examples. Though I will be telling you some of the interesting examples of the last part of the lecture, but to make you understand, you just go to a village. You go to a village, and then village is people's habitat. But the people's habitat, if you simply see them as the built environment, just as you see the rows of houses or rows of the buildings, nothing is there. But if you really want to understand the meaning, because you want to understand the social relationship, why some streets are nearer to some temple, why some of the streets are away from the temple, and why some of the houses are surrounding the temple. All these things, if you carefully look into the ground plan or built plan, you will understand all that related to the social positions. Or to put it in simply, the physical structure is coterminous with the social hierarchy of the society. You'd be surprised to know this thing. But go to any village. Why is that the people belong to the lower stratum of the lower stratum or away from the mainland, which means there is some meaning attached to that. So all these things, the landscape perception, all these things are to be understood. Again, I have to tell you here, not only the many a times people who study architecture think about only mega buildings, big palaces, big structures only should be studied by architectural understanding. But it is only anthropologists anthropologists emphasize not only the big cathedrals or mosques or temples or palaces are to be studied from the point of view of architecture. Even small dwellings, even small, even mounds, ordinary stone mounds, or what to say, even caves, are also to be studied from the perspective of architecture. Only then you would understand the human culture. That is the reason why people used to say anthropologists pay attention to the round mounds to monuments. Everything anthropology wants to show interest. And at the same time, though anthropology and architecture look like different, having two different viewpoints, there are many things they share, because they say they have to share many things to each other. Because what the reason, the design and disposition of dwellings is one of the key material expressions of daily life. Another, I have to tell you, it is anthropologists who paid attention on the old traditional, even so-called vernacular architectures. Some of the famous studies of vernacular architecture of the post-war period or deserve to be mentioned here. Some of the people who have combined anthropology and architecture, just I name a few. Later, if you happen to know, you can read their works. Well, like people like Paul Oliver, Asen Fati, and so many others, they have contributed. Another thing I have to tell you here, both in the architecture and also in the anthropology, a sub discipline is emerging, combining both anthropology and architecture. They call it as architectural anthropology, not just anthropology of architecture. It is architectural anthropology is emerging as a sub-discipline, and in some of the foreign universities, they have good research programs. The one who is pioneer in that field, one Paul Oliver, he is considered to be one of the central figures of architectural anthropology. And because the thing is, they really raise some fundamental questions about the feasibility of the study of architecture from an anthropological point of view. And then we have to also understand the in anthropology, shelters, whether it is cave shelter or hut, or what to say, the big buildings, thatched houses, whatever it is, all are part of the anthropology. Especially if you do some ethnographic research, you are supposed to document the physical structure of the dwellings. So anthropology of shelter is also becoming one of the important areas of research. And again, material culture studies are also becoming very, very important, because anthropology and architecture have always had overlapping interests regarding the issues. And four important areas of research, both anthropology and architecture share very much. One is the spatial organization, second is the forms of human dwellings, and third is interplay between social life and the physical surroundings, and fourth is the relationship of the all the above three I have said. And that is the reason why it is becoming emerging as a sub-discipline. As just now I told you, architectural anthropology is not only relevant in the studies of vernacular architecture, but also in the contemporary urban environments in which most architects work. And there are also the construction, ethnography of construction is also emerging. What do you mean by ethnography of construction? Really, the human behavior is understood from the point of view of the architecture or construction. Keeping this in view, a small definition of architectural anthropology has been given by one scholar. His name is Amarling. He says, architectural anthropology is not the whole spatial dimension of human behavior, but just of products of human constructive behavior. defined as a series of actions geared to transform natural and manufactured resources in tri-dimensional forms that define, delimit, and enclose space. So, so that only we have to understand how space is culturally constructed or gendered or envisioned and most decisively physically built. So, multidimensional nature of architecture is a compelling reason for the anthropological inquiry. And another thing, the construction, as I told you, it is the threshold of the inquiry. It is only thing is what are all constructed, both anthropology and architecture shows interest. But certain things which are not physically modified, that are, which means physically unmodified, but culturally constructed by toponyms, myths, and oral history, are to be excluded from the architectural anthropology. This is very, very important. See, only when there is a human hand involvement is there, it is becoming a part of the architectural anthropology. Certain things, huge space, huge mountains, huge rivers, where there is no human actual handiwork involved, those things are also part of the understanding of the culture, but they are not part of the architectural anthropology that is to be understood properly. So, because architecture and anthropology have become more and more intertwined, making place to what we call an anthropo architecture. Just now I told you, anthropological architecture or architectural anthropology is emerging as subdiscipline. There is also term anthropo architecture is also emerging both in the field of anthropology and architecture, because anthropology and architecture have always been concerned with the connection between human behavior and the built space. Anthropology and architecture have long had similar interests regarding the built environment and its relationship to social life. Keeping this in our mind, I want to make a couple of other distinctions between these two fields. See, anthropology seeks to understand what it means to be human, whereas architecture, architecture provides conditions for being human and responds to the human condition. Then other point, anthropology considered the built form as a means to gain further insights into different socio-cultural practices. Whereas architecture, it has traditionally held the material aspects of the built form as its focus, seeing the built structure as an end in itself. And so one more point I can say, architecture, it is as the design of the, it concentrates as the design of the built space. But anthropology views anything that has to do with the people. And that is the reason why anthropology is having very interesting aspects or viewpoints on the architecture. So, in contrast to social anthropologists, architects have historically studied buildings and dwellings for aesthetic inspiration, functional, tectonic, and material knowledge, and for theoretical development. But anthropologists are not only interested in the these aspects, they are also interested in the meaning, symbolic aspects are also interested. And one thing very interesting thing, temple architecture, what people call it as religious architecture, it is shared both by the architecture specialists and anthropologists. Another interesting thing, traditionally, um, we have in our midst now both anthropology and the architecture are considered to be the modern disciplines. But you see, some of the traditional societies like Indian societies or most of the Asian societies, whether it is Japan, China, or India, you would be surprised to know the architecture as a traditional knowledge exists for centuries. Oh, I tell you one example, how to construct house or what kind of measurements one should have, what is to be kept where, or where the hall should be, where the kitchen should be, where the other things should be, there are certain established procedures have been given in the traditional societies. See, for example, in the Sanskrit literature, it is Vastu Sastra, whereas in the Tamil culture, Dravidian culture, you have more or less similar like that of the Manayadi Sastram. Some people have compared Manayadi Sastram, Vastu Sastram, and other the traditional scripts related to the house construction pattern and other things of China and Japan. They found there are so many commonalities among them. So because they say not only the ways of construction, even the measurements or the seasons or the kind of the soil or the kind of the what to say, the symmetry, all these things are well analyzed, and it is scripted perfectly, which means the so-called traditional architecture is already there in some of the traditional societies that we have to understand. And that is the reason why we say architecture and anthropology, both of them contribute to each other, though active engagement with one another. Another point I want to say, although conventional architectural analyses are necessary to be able to understand a building, social anthropological methods can combine architecture's materiality with the religious immateriality for the deeper understanding of the both. Again, it is very important point. Architecture, the field of architecture, purely interested in the materiality, but anthropology can add to the materiality, which means what I say, even the immateriality of the materiality also can be added by anthropology, so that to gain the full dimension. Now, I want to give you some of the pioneering efforts by anthropologists in the field of architecture. I have to tell you, there are, even before the emergence of establishment of anthropology as a model established discipline, some of the pioneers of anthropology have concentrated on the need of the architecture. I tell you, one Lewis Henry Morgan, in the year 1881 itself, he wrote a book titled Houses and House, Life of the American Aborigines. He is the anthropologist who first looked carefully at the built environment. He emphasized the construction techniques and dwellings as containers of social units. See, the societal dimension of the houses, of the materials, of the built houses are viewed by anthropologists. And there are so many other anthropologists continuously, even now, they are concentrating. One or two anthropologists' contribution I touch upon here before I go to my own illustrations and cases to make you interesting. There is one anthropologist, namely Mary Douglas. In her book, Purity and Danger, she has thoroughly studied the design and organization of space. Then there was also another pioneer, both in anthropology and sociology, one Marcel Mauss. He has mentioned architecture and architectural form as a key technology through which social life is produced and reproduced. See the importance of the the anthropologists, the leading anthropologists have given on the architecture. I want to emphasize. Then there is also another pioneer in anthropology, one Pierre Bourdieu. What he says, he has actually analyzes the spatial divisions as representations of dichotomies between man, woman, outside, inside, day and night, as he coins it, the world reverse. Really speaking, without architecture, the world cannot be reversed. It will be as it is. And which means what he says, the built environment or given meaning. And another famous anthropologist, Levi Strauss, actually, he has used one interesting term, house societies. So to study the architectural dimension of the people's culture. I would touch upon that concept little later. What he says by house societies, it is the term coined by Levi-Strauss. He defines in this, he defines the house as an institution that encompasses relations of kinship, hierarchy, and physical structure. Keeping this definition in mind, I am going to give you so many examples in South India how house patterns, house architectural patterns would be understood in terms of kinship, hierarchy, and physical structure, not necessarily from the point of view of aesthetics. I will give you certain some examples. According to Levi-Strauss, built environment as the source of metaphorical assertions of social relationships, because buildings, landscapes, monuments, all are to be inquired into humans and their culturally constructed places. And there is another anthropologist once tender. He says the built form as a tool to gain insight into cultural meaning or social practice rather than as an end in itself. Now, I have given you so many theoretical or definitional aspects of the architecture. Let us go to some hardcore examples. Especially as I just now told you, Levi-Strauss, the term house societies. Let us see how the traditional societies, traditional communities in South India construct their houses, and how would you understand the houses from the point of view of anthropology. Construction of house is an architecture, because using the space, or the space is utilized. In the space something is built, whether it is a house or temple or whatever it is. Let me cite a few examples how to blend both anthropology and architecture for the fullest understanding of the built space. See, some of you have visited Nilgiris. Todas, one of the tribal communities who live in the Nilgiri hills. Their population is very less, roughly 1,500 only. But you see them almost all the hillocks of Nilgiris, which means they live in the high altitudes of Nilgiris, about hundred or more habitats. But each and every habitat, or each and every what to say settlement, will have only 4 or 5 houses only. This very conical temple, and you find the cylindrical houses, and only 4 or 5 only. The remaining, you have a plenty of space. Why is that? Why don't they live all people in single hillock? They didn't live, but for generation after generation, these 1,500 people live in 100 hillocks and 100 top high altitude hillocks. Each hillock is in their traditional, in their language, it is called mand. As say, for example, Uttakamand is one of the mands. Mand means the dwelling place in the Toda language. Like Uttakamand, there are hundreds of mands. Each mand has about 5 houses only. The reason of having different hillocks as their habitat, surrounding the mand, there is a vast space there. Those space is used traditionally for grazing their cattle, because their traditional occupation is grazing. They want a vast space. If they all todas live in a single mountain or single hillock, it is extremely difficult. There will be competition of using this space. So traditional arrangements, using the vast space, distributed in different hillocks, so it facilitates. So not only studying the materials they use for construction of the house, or the designs they use, or the symmetrical pattern they use. Okay, what those things are all mathematical or design issues. Apart from the design issues, see, you also see the practicality, functionality, all these things. Then I will come to the another example in the same Nilgiris. So why I choose another example, in the same Nilgiris, another community also tribal community. They are also, their population is also less than 2,000, Kota community, but they live in only just 7 villages. But see, say more or less Toda and Kota, similar population size, same population size, around 1,500. One Toda community live in 100 places in the Nilgiris, but Kota community lives in just 7 villages in the 7 clusters. They call it as Keri or Giri. Kotagiri, Kotagiri, Gil Kotagiri, and some of the other places. And see, their traditional occupation is craft. Craft is the traditional occupation. Craft in the sense they are good in carpentry, they are good in blacksmithy, they are good in even pottery, all these things. So, and if you see their house patterns, you will be surprised to see their house patterns. That you don't find the houses individual houses. You always find rows of houses, which means there is you can't distinguish between one house and the other. It will be continuous row of about 10 houses or about 5 houses. If it is about 5-6 houses in a row, that is a area, or that is a street. The reason why, and they have the common veranda. The houses are having individual entrances. Kotas houses are having individual entrances, but no house is individual houses. All the houses are adjacent to each other. Not only adjacent to each other, the houses are sharing the common walls. There is no compound wall. The walls are shared, and the walls are shared. Whereas not only walls are shared, and also they have a common veranda like thing. The reason for this kind of architectural pattern, because the quotas require the cooperation of 5-6 people together to do the carpentry work, or to do the pottery work, or to do any kind of smithy work, because they are traditional craftsmen. They are good in the crafts. Artisans. There is artisan community. So because of their artisan traditional occupation, their house pattern is like that. Because of the traditional occupation of the grazing of the cattle, the house pattern, house structure is different. Like that, you see, if you carefully look into the tribal culture and their house patterns, you will come to know about the relationship between their traditional occupation and their house pattern. See, for example, Palian is a tribal community in South Tamil Nadu. You don't find their houses in a village like it. You don't find clusters of village at all, houses at all. There will be in the vast forest. There will be one house there. There will be another house there. You can't say it is okay. This in this settlement about 100 Palians live, or 50 Palian households are there. You can't say. About the 100 Palians are dispersed throughout the forest area, for the simple reason, they go around the forest, and their traditional occupation is food gathering, collection of forest produce, whatever it is, and they don't require all people to live in one single place. If there is a need, they will join together, they will gather. That is different thing. Then, like that, if you see their traditional house patterns, you understand their traditional occupation. You understand their what to say the how they use the environment. Why this kind of house pattern is there? Why this kind of settlement pattern is there? You will find. Now, I want to give you another most interesting example. It is not tribal example. Let me cite another example. It is from a caste community, very interesting community. There is a community in South Tamil Nadu near Tirunelveli, one community, namely Kottai Pillaimar. Kottai means fort. Pillai is a caste title. That community, for uh, generation after generation, they live within a big mud fort. It is, in fact, it is a fort. I can very well say it's a fortified community. Only it's totally about 100 and 200, 150 to 200 households only, just 200 houses or households, and they are living in a big area, and that area is covered by a big mud wall. Mud wall, it's a very huge mud wall, but nobody is allowed inside. Only where you have only very small entrance. In that entrance, only men can go, men can come out. That is that Kottapilamar communities, men can go out, men can after only men are allowed to go and come, whereas women are confined in the same area. They are not supposed to go out. Many of the women have not seen their the outside world at all. This the what I describe, it is the situation just 20, 30 years before also it was the situation. Even now you can go and see the mud wall, but there was some problem has happened. I am not going to say what is the problem, but because of that kind of confinement within a small within an area, not having any outside contact, and there were there the people used to have the inbreeding in the sense they used to marry among themselves as per their own kinship arrangements, which means there is no hybrid, there is no intercaste marriage for generation after generation, several centuries. It is there. Due to that, what happened, because of the continuous inbreeding, at one point of time, it was found out that they almost all of them were why almost everybody, all people, whether men and women, are suffering from hemophilia. Hemophilia, you mean, the blood doesn't oozes out if they even get accidentally any small cut. That hemophilia has become because of the continuous inbreeding. Such a kind of closed community. What happened, some 30 years before, there was some rift. There were so many other things. The fort was at one part, one mud wall. What you call it as, though I say fort, it is just nothing but a mud wall, because they call themselves as fort community. Kotte means fort. Fort Kotte Vellala. So I call Kotte, but it is not fort. It is just a mud wall, but they claim as it is a fort. What now? There was some drift happen some 30 years before. There is some clash. There was some conflict within among themselves. So what happened, about 20 or 30, 20, less than 20 families have to come out of that place. That place is still, the name of the place I'm telling you, you can go there. There are studies also on that community also have been made. The name of the place is Sri Vaikundam. It is a temple town near Tirunelveli, Kottapilamar. On that community, there was one book by one anthropologist, Kalpana. That book name is Boundary Walls. Boundary Walls. Later, there was one article somebody has written, Boundary Walls Broken. From that, I myself have seen the community, and also whatever I say are also from that book. What happened? So 20 houses or 20 households, people from 20 households have to leave from that area. What happened? No, I do not want to describe the situation. They had come out of the kotte, out of the fort, and they have got a big space in Tirunelveli. They have, interestingly, all those 20 house people, they didn't find their houses different places. They all together purchased one common ground. The first thing they did is, they did a one big compound, and within that compound only, they have made that about 15-20 houses. It is like a gated community. Gated community is a new modern concept because of so many security reasons, other things. You find secure gated community. But this gated, more or less gated community as a culture was continuously followed by a particular community called Kotak Pillaimar. Not only due to that, their marriage pattern was also restricted. Due to the marriage pattern, they had to face one severe biological condition, that is biological inadequacy, which means the common blood coagulation doesn't happen to them, and unless otherwise they go for intermarriage, their offsprings are continuously having the same. It is nothing but a disease, or it is some insufficiency. So what I'm telling, ordinary, anything, even a small, not only smaller architectural thing, any architectural thing, if you study, analyze, it will take you deeper and deeper. The human relations, you would be able to understand. Human conditions, you will be able to understand. And also, it is very, so many other interesting things also you will come. You will come to know about it. And I will, before I conclude, I will give one more architectural example from the point of view of anthropology. Because only then you would understand why there is a need of anthropology for the study of architecture. See, I'm not talking about the what to say, the engineering aspects of architecture, or the material aspects of the architecture, but the other cultural aspect of the built space I am bringing in, which are likely to miss by the archaeologists. But if you have the collaboration, or if you have the understanding of anthropology, you won't miss it. Another example, it is also from my own study. I did a study for my PhD in a village near Tiruchirappalli. In that village, there was one interesting custom in that village. The other villages are not having that custom. Only this village alone has one interesting custom. What is the custom? However rich you are not supposed to construct houses. You are not supposed to construct multi-storied building. Not only multi-storied building, you are not supposed to construct even a one story. Which means you either you can have a ordinary houses only. Simply you keep open the terrace. You should not have first floor, second floor, and third floor, because if you have even a single floor house, you will be facing the wrath of the village deity called Sangli Karupasamy. The village deity called Sangli Karupasamy. The people believe it is a very big village. It is a very big village near Lalgudi. In that village, the people strongly believe it is a multi-caste village, and this belief is shared by all the community. However rich you are, even if you are having about 20 acres of land, though you are afford to have multi-story building, you are not supposed to construct anything as long as you are the resident of the village, because the Sangli Karupu, the village deity, doesn't like this, because it goes around every day in the night, and it doesn't approve anybody constructing and showing the richness visibly, which means but it has indirectly helped the people in that village. Even if you are rich, you are not supposed to show your richness by having multi-story building, or having a tractor, or having the car and all. There is also another belief attached to that, you are not supposed to have any four-wheeler also. All these things, directly and indirectly made some job security for the people who are not having any ownership of land or ownership of the house, which means the people, whatever you have money, you are not to show off. So which means there is I tell you, this is a belief attached with the multi-story building. There is also attached with the you are not supposed to have tractors and other things. It is agricultural village, which means this belief indirectly obstructs or prevents any kind of mechanization of agriculture. Because if you have more and more mechanization of agriculture, the people in the village would lose, the agricultural laborers would lose the job opportunity. They have to go outside the village and get for job. But because this village is not having the opportunity of any kind of mechanization of the agriculture, this village non landowners, the purely those who are not having any land, without even moving to the other places, they are having some kind of job security. Job security in the sense they are getting the works on during all seasons, some agricultural work. So this small belief or this obstructing the any paraphernalia of big architectural houses and other things, preventing that thing indirectly playing some role in the economic relations of the village. So like this, there are so many examples I can give. The point I wish to say, okay, architecture, it is a very vast field, but if you add anthropology into it, you get some deeper meaning of the human life, cultural understanding you can have. With this, I stop my lecture. I welcome any observation or questions so that I can share. Thank you very much for the opportunity once again.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for giving us such an enlightening session. Now it's time for Q&A session. I request all the participants to use raise your hand option available at the bottom of your screen. We'll call out your name at the time. You can unmute yourself to ask questions to the presenter, or you can use chat box to post your questions.
Divya, I have a question. Can I ask?
Yes, ma'am.
Sir, it was a very informative presentation, sir. As you quoted the example of Lalgudi village, we went to one rural survey. We did one rural survey in a nearby village called Udayalur, sir. So in Udayalur, none of the houses are above ground floor. Like they believe that there is one temple, Chellaperumal temple, Selva Mahakaliamman temple. So it has no tower at all. The temple has no tower. So people believe that if any one of their houses is above the temple tower, then this Amman will destroy them. So likewise they believe, they have a belief, and that is why all the houses are slope roof with tiled roof. Only ground structure is found there. So it is very interesting to see a similar village, and all the informations about the Stridal village, how the Mand came, Giri, Nilgiris and all those things are very interesting, sir. I hope students find it useful. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Very good example.
One question. Divya, I could see someone raising their hand.
Sir, you can unmute yourself and ask the question to the speaker.
Hello, good afternoon, sir. I'm Arul here. Sir, thank you for your greater insight on your presentation, sir. Actually, we have a nice broader view about the anthropology and architecture. I have a question about aesthetics and a relation between aesthetics and anthropology and architecture. If you elaborately describe about, it will be better actually for us, sir. Thank you.
Yes. Yeah. You are brought in another interesting arena. See, architecture, aesthetics, anthropology. All these three are highly interrelated. See, architecture, both from the aesthetic and also functional or practical dimensions are there. Aesthetics plus utilitarian. Both things together only makes architecture. But anthropology goes one step ahead. The one step ahead in the sense why it's other meanings are not only that thing, and relationship of the architecture with that of the other aspects of the life, political, economic, kinship, religious, all these things it would relate. So, in fact, as you have rightly pointed out, we will have a very clear understanding of any built space from this three-dimensional point of view. I totally agree with you.
Thank you, sir. Thanks a lot.
Next, they can ask unmute and you can ask Anubhava.
Very good afternoon, sir. It's like it's very wonderful presentation you have been, but have one little bit of doubt about the qualitative analysis, because of anthropology is mainly of a qualitative analysis. Do you have any measurement scales for this, sir? Because for quantitative we have more measurements scales or something. But when you are comparing to the qualitative analysis, because it's more of less cultures or something. So do you have any measurement scale, sir? Because I'm doing in psychology of architecture in vernacular houses. So just I want to know, is there anything like qualitative analysis, sir, apart from the survey or questionnaires or interviews in observation method? Apart from this, do you have any measurement scale, sir? Thank you.
Yeah, you are absolutely right. Anthropology emphasizes on the qualitative understanding of the reality. The need for having quantitative assignments comes only if you want, or only if you go for generalizations. You get this point. See, if you really want to make some generalizations, you require some scales, some measurements, so as to make some conclusions of generalizations. Whereas anthropology is not obsessed, it is not interested in going for too much of generalizations. Rather, it wants to highlight the case study approach, deeper reality. So for this deeper reality, though we have comparative cultures or cross-cultural approaches are there, quantified manner measurements, we are not inclined too much about that. But absolutely now there is knowing this lacuna. Nowadays, some anthropologists have what to say, they have contributed for some kind of quantitative measure. I would say, I can't say quantitative measurements. Some softwares are coming up. Even the qualitative aspects can be measured. Some softwares are being created. That is there, but the thing is, only when you want to know in a quantifiable manner comparisons, in a quantifiable manner generalizations, you need quantification. Rather, or comparisons of other kind, you don't require quantification. But it doesn't mean by telling you should not think that anthropology is not at all interested in comparative aspects. It has comparative viewpoint. What do you know? You can very much compare. Qualitative comparison also can be made. On the basis of the qualitative comparisons only. We have come to many conclusions in this world. What type of families are prevalent more? What type of worship patterns are prevalent more? Or all these things have been made. It is your question is more of qualitative versus quantitative, but that, utilizing the quantitative aspects. The another thing, when the moment you want to go for quantitative, you would also have to do survey type of research. And the moment you go for survey research, you have to go for the sample selection. But anthropology believes in the holistic thing, not leaving anything. not merely choosing a few samples. It wants to study the holistic approach. But whichever is possible. See, holistic approach means if it is unmanageable, you can't do that. Whatever is manageable by a single anthropologist on that particular area, particular subject of research, you cover everything. Don't leave anything. But only if you want to go for a mega survey type of research only, you have to have sampling, quantification, all these things. So because the nature of research is different, both are needed. We need generalization. We also need the case study approach. Both are necessary. Both qualitative and quantitative research is necessary, and we have to decide which method will be useful for the type of research or for the type of thing which you want to probe further.
Okay, sir. Thank you so much, sir.
Nabil, you can ask, unmute yourself and ask.
Good afternoon, sir. This is Nabil Ahmed here. I just have a question regarding the Vastu Shastra. Do traditional beliefs like Vastu Shastra and Feng Shui, like what they call in China, does it all come under the umbrella of anthropological study, or it is a completely different study by itself?
So it can brought under the we can't say it is purely anthropological, but definitely anthropology is interested in all the traditional understanding of house patterns or of construction method and all. See, again, the Vastu Shastra or Manedi Shastram or the Feng Shui or other Japanese methods, all were now codified, all are available as the text form now. But earlier, they were in the minds of the people as the belief system or in the oral, as a oral knowledge was there. Once it has been codified, scriptured, some kind of what to say, some non elasticity, as some kind of rigidity has happened. Once anything is rigid, it is difficult to change. But nothing wrong. You have to pay attention to it. Whether it is having any scientific 100% scientificity or not, that is a different thing. But definitely, anthropology won't avoid this kind of traditional knowledge system, whether it is available in the oral form or in the text form. Both are the subject matters of anthropology.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Hello.
Hello.
Yeah, you can ask the question.
Yeah. So, good afternoon, sir. That was a really good presentation. Myself, Vinithan. So, regarding this, once again about the Vastu. So, in vernacular architecture, like maybe Agraharam or Chettinad architecture, we could not find this kind of Vastu approach in that type of building. Whereas what you said, the anthropological approach is very high in that type of vernacular buildings. Is that Vastu comes under the category of anthropology in architecture, sir?
Again, I see Vastu, within a culture, there are different layers of culture. Certain things are considered to be the what to say, traditional, great tradition or elite culture. Certain things are non-elite, folk culture and all. See, Vastu will not be under the common people's knowledge. It has reached a stage of elite or written culture, chirographic cultures. So, but but they have influence on the common people also. Though, but sometimes many of the things what the Vastu Shastram says, people are not aware of it. And again, I tell you, only the recent, reason for the past couple of decades only, Vastu Shastram has become so popular. But prior to that, people had some kinds of belief systems, some kinds of traditional understandings and measurements, which were in the minds of the people or the people who were using it. But it is suddenly has become a part of the profession, and it is elite form of culture. I can tell you very easily, you will understand. See the priests nowadays, earlier also people were having lot of marriage, but now it is becoming a common to have the priest, Brahmin priest, to conduct marriage, to officiate marriage rituals. Earlier it was not the practice. It is a recently introduced one. Again, I tell you, earlier in the temples, or the only a very big, huge temples only, you had the Brahmin priest. But now you have, even in the smallest villages, even folk deities also, people employ some Brahmin priests, Brahmins as priests. So it's a new phenomenon. So like this, was a text. It is a new phenomenon entered in the culture. Again, so that only I tell culture. There are folk culture, popular culture, elite culture, traditional culture, classical culture, written culture, oral culture. All we should understand from the all perspective, because culture is dynamic. Culture should not be viewed as a single form. It is to be viewed from the multidimensional points of views.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for your humble answer. Thank you so much.
Sir, related to the Vastu only, I'm having again one more this actually. I'm Arul here again. As we have Vastu and climatology, have any connection in between, sir? Climatology and Vastu.
I'm not very particular about. I'm not aware of detail, too much of nitty-gritty of Vastu Shastram. But Vastu Shastram tells something about the quality of soils. But I don't think anything about the climate or wind and other thing. But there are some points of reference about the type of soil. What type of soil? They have named the different kinds of soil. Geologists would study the quality of soil. That is different thing. This is traditionally Vastu Shastram would talk about if you take a piece of soil and find out if it has these materials, if it is in this color, or if it has this kind of shining or whatever it is, then you call it is. Then they name them and they say whether you can construct this house there or what type of construction required there. All these things, that type of things are there. But I don't think whether it has any climatic references. For that, you have to go for one Shastram separately. See, because in Indian culture, whether it is Dravidian culture or whatever it is, we have a long tradition, both oral and textual. Some of things are orally transmitted, some of the things are textually transmitted. Those texts were earlier in the hands of a few, but now the same texts are dominating on the other people also. Sometimes clash, sometimes acceptance, sometimes rejection, all are happening.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Divya.
Now I request Professor Manju Arjunanwal to deliver the vote of thanks.
Am I visible? Okay. Am I audible, Divya?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. Okay. It is my pleasure and privilege to have been asked to propose a vote of thanks on this webinar series, Anthropology and Architecture by Professor A. Chellaperumal, Department of Anthropology, Pondicherry University. I take this opportunity to extend hearty vote of thanks to the guest speaker and sharing their experiences very strongly by quoting an examples like physical structure is the social hierarchy of the society and the perceptions, by interesting examples like lifestyle in Toda and Kota in Nilgiris, Kottaipillai community, and connecting that lifestyle into the gated communities, and Lalgudi village in Tiruchirappalli, which is something like very new information for us to know about their lifestyles and their hut houses and not showing off the money and the traditional value systems and everything by your valuable thoughts and your experiences, sir, on this MIDAS webinar series on 6th March 2021. And also I would like to thank our director, Mrs. Rajini Reddy, our pillar of strength, and our principal, Professor Parisutha Rajan, for our encouragement and support, and HOD Professor Jayaraman sir for motivation, program coordinator Meenakshi ma'am, and also the moderator Ms. Divya, and assistant Professor Jabin, Janani, and Akila, and our academic coordinator Mr. Meenakshi Sundaram, and our IT team Franklin and Gopi, and our admin team Bhaskar and other people. And if I missed anyone, please apologize me. And also I would like to thank our participants, especially our MArch first year students and also our BArch fourth year students and architects. We have been fortunate enough to be back by a team soon with another webinar. Thank you.
Now I request everyone to switch on the camera for virtual photography.
Request everyone switch on your camera. Still some more? Any other? That's all we can take. Still some more can switch on. MR students? MR student, please switch on your camera.
Arul and Nabil.
Divya, you also take one snapshot.
Taken, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you everyone for joining us today. We appreciate you being here. I request all the participants to kindly fill up the feedback form. Thanks again for joining today, and we will see you all by next session soon in MIDAS. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Chellaperumal, sir.
Thank you,
Thank
sir.
you, madam. Thank you all.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
So shall I leave?
Ah, yes, sir. Thank you.
Thanks, sir.